Halo guys, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Yuni Sari, and in this video I'm going to continue to explain what Abdullah has explained before. Now we move to the principle. Applying a principle involves doing the following. The first, determine which concepts or variables are involved. Second, determine the principle that relates this concept or principle. Third, recall the principle. Fourth, determine which concept or variable has varied and the directions or magnitude of its variation. Fifth, determine which concept or variable has been affected. Sixth, determine the magnitude and direction of the effect on the affected concept or variable. And the last, seventh, confirm that the value is reasonable. The next is procedure. Learning goals that are procedures or the easiest goals upon which to conduct an instructional analysis. Generally, application of the procedures involves these steps. The first is determine whether a particular procedure is applicable. The second step is recall the steps of the procedure. The third is apply the steps in order with decision steps if required. The fourth is confirm that the end result is reasonable. Domain-specific problem solving. Information processing analysis for domain-specific problem solving generally include the following major procedural steps. There are 7 steps here. The first is determine the knowns, the givens. Second, determine the unknowns, the problem. Third, determine the class of problems to which this problem belongs. Fourth, determine the relational rules that release the knowns and unknowns in the situation. Fifth, determine the procedural rules that determine the application of the relational rules. Sixth, apply the procedural rules and the nested relational rules. Seventh, the last, confirm that problems is solved, unknowns or determined. Conducting a prerequisite analysis. Once you have decomposed the learning goal into its information processing task, you have made much progress in determining what the content of the instruction must be. You have already determined how much of what learners will need to know how to do in order to complete the goal. The next step is decomposing the task is called prerequisite analysis. To determine prerequisites, you will reflect on each one of the steps in the information processing analysis and ask, what must the learner know or be able to do to achieve this step? You will continue to ask this question until each step has been broken down into everything the students must know to achieve the learning goal. For example of prerequisite analysis here is locating journal articles on a topic. So the learner here must do the following. The first is know what Eric means and its purpose. The second is know what the thesaurus is and its purpose. And the last is know what Eric's thesaurus look like and where to locate it. So this is the example of prerequisite analysis for the concept rhombus. The first is recall the characteristic of a rhombus. Second, determine whether figure is a polygon. Third, determine if the figure is a parallelogram. The fourth is determine if the figure sides are equilateral. Fifth, determine if two of the figure angles are oblique. And the last is the figure is not rhombus. Writing learning objectives. How to write learning objectives. Objectives can be written at the lesson level, the course level, or various intermediate levels such as units, blocks, or chapters. There are many different forms of objectives that can give equally precise and concrete description of learning outcomes. We will demonstrate how to write the simplest form. 3 component objectives as first described by Robert Major in 1692. 3 component objectives are verbal statements of learning outcomes that include 3 parts. The first part is a description of the terminal behavior or actions that will demonstrate learning. The second is a description of the conditions of demonstrations of that action. And the last part is a description of the standard of criteria. The most critical part of a learning objective is the description of the observable action. The statement of the terminal behavior includes a description of the actions that the learner can show that will demonstrate that he has learned. The action statement includes action verbs such as select, identify, solve, repair, and write. Okay, guys, thank you so much for your attention. I hope you learned something from this video. I'm Yuni Sari. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.